Good evening. For those of you in the audience who have not attended one of these hearings recently, let me review our normal procedure. Staff will introduce each item for consideration. If you'd like to speak, please fill out the speaker form located on the table in the lobby and indicate the item number and whether you are for or against the item. And please give the form to the clerk seated on my left. The applicant and supporters will be heard first. Those in opposition to the request will be heard next. Then the applicant may be given a chance for rebuttal if necessary. Comments should be restricted to pertinent information regarding the agenda item under discussion. If you're an individual, you will have 3 minutes for comments. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, you will have 6 minutes for comments. Speakers should move closer to the podium when their item is being presented by staff. Speakers should identify themselves clearly for the record by stating their name and address. Each speaker should be given respectful and courteous attention. The board may ask questions of speakers or staff members. Information such as pictures, site plans, letters, etc., presented at a public hearing will be kept as part of the public record. If you have something on your cell phone you'd like to show us, we'd love to see it, but you have to promise to send it to staff afterwards, or they have to keep your cell phone for evidence. And you probably don't want to give them your phone. I would then ask for a motion from the board. Once a motion has been made and seconded, discussion will be closed to the floor. Following board discussion, a vote will be taken. During voting, board members who did not cast objecting votes are considered to have voted in support of the motion. Any person aggrieved by any decision of the Board of Adjustment may, within 15 days, file an appeal to the Board of County Commissioners through the Planning and Development Division of the Development Services Department. Okay, we're ready for our first item.
Good evening. For the record, Angie Gates, Planning and Development. Item number 1 is a request for a side yard west setback variance from 10 feet to 2.5 feet, and 2, a rear yard setback variance from 30 feet to 3 feet for a shed in the R1A single-family dwelling district and the Academy Oaks subdivision located at 149 Academy Oaks Place. The existing shed is 240 square feet and encroaches 7.5 feet into the required west side yard setback and 27 feet into the required rear yard setback. 3 letters of support were submitted from the residents throughout the neighborhood. We did not receive a letter of support from the neighbor that will be directly affected. A code enforcement violation 23-105 was issued for this structure, resulting in the necessity of this variance. There have not been any prior variances for this particular property. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
According to our report, the logic for the variance request by the owner was that this was an existing location that was already damaged and replaced. So do we have a previous permit for the original shed?
There wasn't.
There wasn't? Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Yes,
Yes,
sir.
follow-up question on that one. When you asked if there was a previous permit for the shed, are we talking about a building permit or a variance?
There weren't
either.
a building permit or a variance.
Nothing of the sort?
Nothing.
Understood, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, is the applicant present?
Yes.
Is there anything you would like to add to staff comments? If so, I need you to come to the front. You don't have to. It's up to you.
Not at the moment.
Okay, do we have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I would, yes.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to need you to come forward.
You're getting
Please come to the podium, sir.
Oh, thank you.
We have,
we don't mind you coming up here, but, you know.
they record you.
No worries, thank you.
Please
How are
state
you?
your name and address for the record.
Julius John, 149 Academy Oaks Place, Altamont Springs, Florida, 32714.
Just, I read the staff report, and your logic was that there was an existing shed damaged by the recent storm, and it was just replaced. When you replaced it, did you not pull a permit for it?
No.
Did you have somebody build it? Did you build it? I just kind of...
There was just a tiny structure there that we kept things in, and I wanted to do something bigger and better because, as I stated in the form, that theater arts professor at Bethune-Cookman, and I really wanted more storage for props and things of that nature. So I said I might as well just do something substantial to
and the
do
reason-
that. So no permit was pulled.
Yeah, the reason I was asking is, obviously we try to look into why things were built, you know, if it was built by a contractor, he should have known to pull a permit.
Oh, yes, of
Owner
course.
build, you know, we understand
Yes.
sometimes, but, you know,
Yeah.
just trying to understand, you know, a new structure was built in the old
Yes.
place, but without permit.
I understand that, yes, that's correct, yes, sir.
Thank you.
And if it's over 200 square feet, it requires the same setback as the house.
Right, that's what
Okay.
I've been instructed as.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Sir, or Doctor?
Yes, sir.
Is there an existing concrete pad or anything underneath?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it the same size as the shed, bigger, smaller?
It's the same size now. I just went ahead and built what was, you know, the concrete that was there. I went ahead and and I added more, actually, just to, because it was kind of rinky, raggedy.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
And so, I guess my question is, we've got other folks to hear from tonight, and none of us
Sure.
have made our minds up. If it turns out that this can't go forward with exactly how it's being submitted,
Sure.
can you still kind of maybe extend the pad and maybe build it within the permitted?
No, because what I did is I literally just, since it was that corner that my eyes were set on, had no idea that, you know, this would occur. Apologize now, but no, I had already made sure that that's where it would go back.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
And even if it was 200 square feet, you'd still require a 10-foot setback off the
Yeah.
Right.
side.
Yeah, it's kind of my ignorance as well, be honest, because I was under the impression that the shed didn't need a permit, so.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
I see that you have submitted letters of support from various neighbors
Yes.
within your subdivision, but interestingly enough, not the neighbor on the side adjoining the shed.
Yes.
Did you seek support from this neighbor?
I did not,
Do you
because
guys-
the person that is in question, I do believe is here, and his wife and I had a confrontation, so I just stayed away from that.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely, thank you.
Is there anyone?
Johns. John. Say it again. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak in support of the request? Okay, Mr. Travis Roy? Yes, come on down, sir.
Or is he person in support?
Oh, I'm looking for Travis. Come on down.
I think it's person in support.
Oh, you're trying to speak in support.
My name is Bob Starks. I live at 143 Academy Oaks Place, right next door to Julius and Jason. I personally have no problem with the shed. I mean, they've been very good neighbors. They keep their house up very nice, very neatly, and all. And I know Julius did need some extra storage. So, that being said, I would just like to put my 2 cents worth in for that
Okay.
as a neighbor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Travis, come on down, sir.
Oh, this
Okay,
one, gotcha,
podium,
sorry, I
sir.
wasn't paying attention.
Sorry. If you state your name and address for record.
Travis Rory, address is 155 Academy Oaks Place in Altamont.
Okay. And are you're the house that's the most affected by it?
I
You're
am.
the closest to it?
Yeah.
Okay. What would you like to tell us, sir?
Well, this is, all started with all of a sudden the structure being built. We've lived next to each other 7, 10 years. I've never seen an existing shed back there. Now, I'm not peeking over, I can't tell you exactly what's happened, but there's nothing above the fence line that I've ever seen in that area. So we see some concrete getting poured, all of a sudden we see a structure getting put up, and the eave, the roof line flows towards my yard. The eave was put up right in line with his fence. So when it rains, the water runs off his eave into my fence, into my yard. And look, rules are rules. I just want, to play within the rules. Originally, we've asked for 4, he asked for 4-foot variance, now we're asking for 2.5 feet variance. Well, the 2.5 feet is because the structure is 2.5 feet off of his fence line, okay? And, I mean, and I have pictures, pass out pictures, but, it just comes down to, this was put up, then now we're asking for a permit, And I don't remember ever seeing a structure back there. So this is, I don't know how true that is, but I'll show you pictures. I'm fine with 4 feet because that seems logical, but where we're at with the roof line originally on the fence line, they've since cut it back since the, permit violation came through. So now there's no eave, it just goes straight down. So, again, I'll show you pictures here, but I'm fine with 4 feet. I mean, that seems logical, that's what normal it is when you apply for the variance, but at 2.5 feet, I mean, this is a pretty good sized structure that all of a sudden just popped up.
Okay, so to make sure I'm clear, if the structure was shifted 4 feet so that was 4 feet off the fence line, you would be okay?
Yeah, I would, because I mean, I think that's, again, I'm a reasonable person. But the way it was originally put up, the eave was right at their fence line.
Sure.
And I mean, it's, it's,
And just as I understand, is the concern the runoff, the biggest concern the runoff?
the biggest concern is runoff. Second of all, it's not a permanent structure. I'm not a contractor.
Sure.
I don't see bracing all over the place. And the way the roof is tilted, that thing's coming in my yard if it's not braced correctly with storms and things like that. So that's the reason for a permanent structure, to make sure it's safe for everybody around.
Sure.
That's my only other concern.
Right, when they apply for a permit after the fact, they have to go through the same steps with the county, and it has to be inspected for proper bracing.
And that's why the violation was, or the phone call was made, is this is a big structure that is, I don't know how, how sound it is. And then, the closeness to literally having a waterfall going into my yard.
Right, okay.
So, do you guys want?
Sure, you can send them on.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So just to be clear, it is your assertion that prior to the erection of this structure in question, there was no prior shed, thank you, in your recent memory, in your 7 to 10 years of living in this?
Correct. I remember seeing an umbrella,
Okay.
and maybe some chairs, and maybe there's, because I can't tell, I don't peek over, I can't tell you if there's a small pad there that the umbrella or something like that was on, but from my, view of a fence, and you see a little, shed, I never saw one on that side.
Right. When I moved in my house originally, they had a small shed in the back that was like 10 by 7, and it was shorter than my fence, so it's possible.
And I've lived there longer than they have, so I knew the neighbors before them too, so.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition to the request? Sir, would you like a chance for rebuttal on what he brought up? Okay.
First, I'd like to thank him for not peeping over into my fence. Probably wouldn't like what he see anyway. I never, the shed was, just like I said, it was a small pad, and the contents that we had was, as I stated before, was for the theater department. So it was not stuff that I really, it was mostly like wood and things of that nature. So the shed was if we, the umbrella is if we wanted to just go back and sit and every now and then. So yes, it was an existing structure there. And we put it there shortly after we moved in. So, but it wasn't anything substantial like we have at the moment. As far as the eave is concerned, we were still in the process of having contractors, and not contractors, but people that we know to help us, get the thing erected. And as he stated, we did cut that back substantially. And I do have pictures on my phone. I won't let them keep my phone, but I will certainly forward the pictures, and I can show you guys the pictures. Everything has been done after I was told to do it, make sure it was done properly. The runoff and all that stuff will not encroach, will not approach, will not touch their property. If it does, I'll personally take care of those expenses, but none of that will, what I'm asking for does not in any way, shape, or form mess with their property at all. And Travis, no, I wouldn't do that. I mean, I've been neighborly to them since I've been there since 2014. I would never do anything that would, mess with our, me being neighborly to them. So that's a little, it's a little personal, but whatever. And I can't remember the last thing that was said, but it's done properly. It's been built. with one of those companies. So I think I submitted all the information, so it's hurricane-proof, everything. So, and I guess we'll find out shortly here in a
That's
few
the
days.
matter for the county building department.
Yes, yes. All that's been
We're
taken
just
care of.
discussing where it can be located. They'll
Yes.
tell you whether or not it's built properly.
So, but if that was one of the main concerns, as he's already stated, I've already cut that back substantially. But that was going to happen anyway. They just kind of jumped the gun on me, but whatever. I appreciate you listening. Yes, sir. You had a question, Tom?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I have some follow-up questions.
Yes, sir.
Is the structure capable of being moved?
No. It's hurricane-proof. We made, again, I made sure it was solid, tied to the ground, tied to like he said, I did pour more concrete to make sure that it was done properly. And I needed, I guess size matters for me at this point because I needed that much space for my props and things of that nature. So the school doesn't give me, I actually took this expense of my own, as I think I've already stated in the information as well. Not that that matters in the sense of being legal or doing it illegally. That wasn't the intent, and I've already stressed that.
Right. And one other question.
Yes, Tom?
In the variance criteria where you had the short answers to the 6 questions.
Yes, sir.
The first one, you asserted that the existing shed was destroyed by a hurricane.
Right, yeah, it was just a little, you know.
Right. Destroyed by the hurricane, but I am curious which hurricane.
It was a couple of hurricanes ago.
Was it last
yeah, I just
year?
haven't,
Or-
it wasn't the one prior, it was the one prior to the prior. I can't think of the name of it. And which it just, I didn't even think to do anything at the time, to be honest. Just been so busy, so. It's always been a dream to build something, like I said, a little more, with more structure and sound. I mean, can anyone share with me the 2 hurricanes ago, what the name of that was?
Ian and Nicole, I think.
And Ian, Nicole, before that Irma, I think.
That would have been a previous year.
That would have
Yeah.
been, it's all running together, to be honest.
That's a fact.
I didn't write it down, I just remember it being destroyed, so.
All right, Mr. Hadaway?
2 questions. Well,
Yes, Jim.
Or kind of 3 is.
Sure.
As an old, rapidly aging old Florida boy, let me just say, be very careful anytime someone sells you something and says it's hurricane-proof. That's just not dispositive. That's just me.
Well, as you stated, it will be inspected, so they'll see that everything has been
Sure.
done properly.
Again, 2 questions. The
Yes, sir.
first is, it strikes me as interesting, in looking at the photos that the gentleman shared, you have a single slope roof on the shed that drains towards your neighbor's property. And I'm just curious why it was built that way as opposed to draining onto your own property.
It is my own property, and I can show you, it's not draining onto his property. And as a matter of fact, that's on the ground there. And as again, they asked what the water flow, and the inspectors can come in and see that. The water flow, it will drain down. There's going to be, gutters put up as well and re-drained into the front of my property, but.
So the construction's not finished.
Not that part, no. I
Gotcha.
mean, no, not that part.
Who's your
No.
contractor?
I don't have a contract. I'm pretty much doing this with friends and
Gotcha.
things of that nature.
Last question.
Yes, sir.
And these 3 gentlemen might fuss with me because I haven't mentioned this to them, but you and your neighbor have some disagreements, and at least for me, I can't speak for these gentlemen, the input of neighbors who object has a lot of weight. Do you think there's any value if you and your neighbor perhaps discuss, and maybe we can come back to it later in this meeting? Or do you think everyone has their mind made
I
up?
have no problem talking to Travis.
We're pretty clear.
Yeah. He
Okay,
said he's-
that's that, okay. I'm finished. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, Sergeant Gibbs?
Actually, he answered the question, obviously the drainage being a point of, regardless of whether it's over the fence, on the fence, putting a gutter up obviously would solve that, so.
Yeah, everything will be done perfect. I mean, it's, as I think Bob already stressed as well, I don't do anything tacky. Unfortunately, I apologize for not
No,
doing this, but
You know, well, we can have a discussion here in shortly, so.
Okay. Any more questions?
Yes.
thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
One more
Sure,
thing,
yes. Go ahead, Tom.
less of a question,
Yes,
more of a observation,
yes,
and I want you to be at ease.
Sure.
Because I'm not going to vote against you for this reason.
yes,
It is very common for applicants, as part of their application,
yes,
to submit letters of support from people in the neighborhood. Sometimes this takes the form of the neighbors, of their own initiative, write out a letter in their own words and submit it. It's to you, and
Yes.
you include it with your. Sometimes the applicant makes it easy for the neighbors, circulates something simple, I state your name, state your address, have no
Right.
objection to this, sign your name, that's it.
yes, sir.
And I saw the 3 letters of support that were included with your application.
Frank initiated those, yes.
Yes, okay. So those were, your 3 neighbors got together and collaborated on those of their own initiative, and that's.
My neighbor Frank, I think is in there, he wrote the letter and then shared it with the ones that signed off on it.
All right.
Pretty much saying the same thing, is they didn't fulfill the need to, I guess, retell the same story.
Okay. Very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
motion to approve.
Yeah, motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'll approve for discussion.
Okay.
Or second for discussion, I mean.
All right. Go for it.
I might be repeating something I've said in other meetings. I kind of feel like I'm a big fan of investment-backed property rights. I think our applicant is being, some things I'm tweaking on, but overall largely reasonable in what he's asking. But I think a property owner, the neighbor, has a right to stand on his rights. And I think if the neighbors can work something out, great, but if not, everyone has a right to say, I want the law enforced as it's written. And that sticks with me.
Okay. The shed that was there before, to me, is not really even an issue, even if it was permitted, which it wasn't, because it wasn't pre-existing. He said they put the original shed there themselves too after they moved in. So a shed being placed illegally where another illegal shed was really doesn't carry any, to me, value as far as the presence been. Like these houses where they bought the house and the shed's been there for 50 years and, 5 owners ago put it up. It's a totally different circumstance. I also feel that the neighbors have a right to expect the maintenance of their standards in the community county set, and when all the neighbors are for it, that's one thing, but when people who are directly affected by it have an opposition, I have to give that a lot of weight.
Something I also give a lot of weight to is whether or not the structure in question, the structure that's up for discussion, is already existing or not, or if it only exists on paper, in plans. It's still proposed.
Well, it's there.
Yes, it is. However,
So to go correctly is a matter for the building department.
if very good arguments exist for why the structure should not be where it is, I don't feel that my hand should be forced to approve something just because, well, it's already there.
Okay, any more discussion?
Well, my question in this case is, based on the discussion from, the neighbor that's encroached upon, in this case visually or whatever, the drainage issue can be resolved. Owner's already said he can resolve it by putting up gutters so no water would be distributed to the adjacent property. Whether the shed is 2.5 feet or 1.5 feet at 4 feet further away, it's not going to change the visual aspect of it. So I guess my question is, I'm not seeing the roadblock between 1.5 feet, between where it's at now and asking the owner to tear it down and rebuild it 1.5 feet away. So in this case, while we're trying to find the minimum distance, is what our normal variance criteria would be. Again, I'm just looking at it that, we've come up with a mitigative surface that can resolve some of the, adjacent neighbors' concerns, but, we're not going to change the visual aspect of it, regardless of whether
No,
Approve or
there's
deny,
a
so.
real difference between 1.5, then that 1.5 feet is the neighbor removing his objection.
understood.
I mean, that's it. To me, that's a
And
significant
Mr.
issue.
Hadaway's, I will, acquiesce to him that, give priority, or not priority, but give credence to people that are in opposition. But there is also a system and a manner for people to ask for a variance
Sure.
to those standards. So in both cases, they both have an avenue to pursue, so.
Right.
So,
But we have a system, but it's not a guarantee.
understood.
It's
I didn't
not
say-
right.
I never used those words.
No, I
never used those words. Those are your words.
And I'm with you. We split the baby sometimes,
Correct.
and a lot of times nobody ends up happy. I get that. So it's really a case by case based on the facts and circumstances and how the board members feel about it.
Understood. So that's my, 10 cents, whatever,
Sure.
you want to take, so.
I think there's also, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong in thinking this, is that this isn't one of those situations we see sometimes where, but for granting the variance, they can't have a shed. You still have a shed.
Right.
It just can't be built on this existing pad. And so, in that instance, and you add to it a neighbor who objects, that's just kind of where what's motivating my thoughts.
Understood.
Do we have any more discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve the request. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye.
All right.
Okay, motion does not pass. I'd like to put this to bed for good, though. Do we have another motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to deny.
Motion denied, do we have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion to deny, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, it carries 3-1. Sir, your request is denied. You can appeal our decision within 15 days to the Board of County Commissioners if you choose to. If you get with staff, they'll be happy to help you with that. Okay? Good luck to you. All right, next item?
Item number 2 is a request for a rear yard setback variance from 25 feet to 23 feet for an addition in the PD Plan Development District in the Deer Run Unit A8 subdivision located at 1472 South Wind Drive. The proposed addition of a family room and master bedroom will be 630 square feet and will encroach 2 feet into the required rear yard setback. The Deer Run Homeowners Association approved the proposed addition, and there have not been any prior variances for the subject property, and this concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Good evening.
Good evening.
Come on down. Please state your name and address for the record.
John Hughes, I'm at 1472 Southwind Drive in Castleberry.
Okay, what would you like to tell us?
My wife and I planned the addition for a long time. I've got several $1,000s sunk into it already between architectural fees for plans. I'd never imagined I was going to need a variance. I didn't know there was a 25-foot setback. I knew I was way clear of any utility easements and all that. I thought I was good. So I paid the architects. I bought some long lead items already because I wanted to hit the ground running. And there really isn't much else to say. We were hoping to put a nice large addition on the house.
Okay? Any questions for the applicant? Yes, sir.
The prior applicant kind of gives away what motivates us sometimes. Can you share with us your conversations with your neighbors about the project?
My neighbors are all fine with the project, and in fact, the vice president of the homeowners association is here to speak on my behalf if you want to hear from him.
And I appreciate that. Your neighbor, just to be specific, your neighbor directly behind you, they're okay with it?
All my neighbors are fine with it.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
All righty.
Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Come on down, sir. Please state your name and address.
My name is Dennis Rudoi, that's R-U-D-O-I. I live directly across the street from John, 1467 Southwind Drive. I'm the vice president of the Homeowners Association in Eagles Nest, and I also chair the architectural committee in Deer Run.
Okay.
John submitted a letter of request to the architectural committee and a copy of his architectural prints and what his intentions were. And not only did the architectural committee agree unanimously, but so did the executive board of the Homeowners Association. We see no problem with it. It would be an asset to the neighborhood and no negative effect to the neighborhood whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? Okay, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion approved, second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. It's approved. Good luck to you. Enjoy your addition. All right, next item.
Item number 3 is a request for a side street west setback variance from 25 feet to 11 feet for a fence in the R1AA Single Family Dwelling District in the San Leandro Springs subdivision located at 990 Campello Street. The subject property is a corner lot and considered to have 2 front yards for setback purposes. The front of the house faces Campello Street, and the Seminole Avenue side is where the variance is being sought. Traffic engineering has no objection to the placement of the fence as it relates to site visibility. The fence will be 17 feet from the sidewalk and 24 and a half feet from the edge of pavement. There have not been any prior variances for the subject property, and this concludes my presentation.
Any questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Is there anything you would like to add? Come on down. Please state your name and address.
Hello, my name is Jana. I live at 990 Campello Street. I live by myself and 2 dogs. And this is the first house I bought. I bought it in 2020. When I bought the house, there was an old fence there, and a storm came and blew it over, I think a year or so later. I don't remember which one it was. But I wanted to put a fence up again after I'd gotten it removed, and I realized that I was not able to do that. And also, my neighbor behind me, she's been there for 30 years, she told me that she was potentially getting fined of her fence. So she went through the variance process just a couple months ago. She did get approved, and she encouraged me to go through this process. Her name is Melissa. She's elderly, so I didn't have her write a letter because I didn't realize how important that was. But basically, I just want a fence because my bedroom door is right there. It's those French doors, and that street is pretty busy, and also there's a lot of people that go by there, and I would like to put a fence for privacy and for safety reasons.
Okay, any questions for the applicant? Yes, sir.
Ma'am, is the fence that we're discussing tonight, is it going to be in the exact same place as the fence that was blown down?
The fence that was blown down was, it was, I'm sorry, I'm trying to have a hard time. So there's like my pool screen, and then there was like a wooden fence. There's some like brick path, and then there's some pavers that do landscaping, and then it was like behind that. So yes, it is supposed to be where that was, but it's also extending a little bit forward too.
But no closer to the sidewalk or to the street from the other one?
It might be like a foot or so closer.
Gotcha.
I don't exactly remember where it was. It wasn't standing up very well, to be honest.
Sure. Fair enough. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you. Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? We have a motion.
Mr. Chair, a motion to approve?
Okay.
Second.
Motion to approve, a second. Any discussion? And I'll just add, I ride my bicycle down that road all the time, like these big loops, and there's some sidewalks or fences a lot closer to the sidewalk than that. In fact, I don't even notice our fence. Some of them are right up on it further down.
And not only that, but immediately adjacent to the edge of the sidewalk, there is a 6 to 12-inch concrete
Yes.
retaining wall that separates the grade of the sidewalk from the applicant's yard. So any
Yes.
impact to pedestrians from the presence of the fences, it's not already going to be affected.
They sit up a hill.
Yeah.
I know that corner well. Okay. If there's no discussion, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries, it's approved. Good luck to you. All right, next item?
Item number 4 is a request for a side street south setback variance from 25 feet to 17 feet for a workshop in the R1 AA Single Family Dwelling District in the Winding Cove subdivision located at 2399 Winding Cove. The workshop will be 400 square feet and will encroach 8 feet into the required side street setback and will be for personal use only. The Winding Cove Homeowners Association has approved the proposed workshop. One letter of support was received from the neighbor located at 2391 Winding Cove, and I know that your staff report says there was not any prior variances for the subject property. I accidentally lied about that, and Tom called me out on it. One previous variance was approved for the side street setback for the fence in 2013. And this concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Is there anything you would like to add, sir? Come on down. Please state your name and address.
Larry Johnson, 2399 Winding Cove, Oviedo, 32765.
Okay, what would you like to tell us?
So between my house and my neighbor's house, through this process, I found out there's a utility easement there. And then on the back, facing Palm Way, I found out there's a drainage easement there. So the utility easement is 10 feet, the drainage easement is 20 feet. So I'm pretty well limited in terms of where I can put a building. And because it's a corner lot, they explained to me that's what's considered to be 2 fronts, so I'm even more restricted in terms of being able to use that space.
Right. Though you did get a variance for your fence.
I did, and the building would be inside the fence, and that's what I was
Right.
hoping that since that variance was already granted for the fence, then this one would be okay.
So the visual obstruction is already there. I mean, that would, okay. Okay, any questions for the applicant? All right, sir, thank you. Is there anyone to speak in support of the request?
Oh.
Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? We have a motion.
Mr. Chair, a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion approved, a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries, it's approved. Good luck. All right, next item.
Item number 5 is a request for a side yard north setback variance from 7.5 feet to 0 feet for 2 sheds in the R1 Single Family Dwelling District in the McNeil's Orange Villa subdivision located at 10032 Bear Lake Road. Both sheds are 56.25 feet and will encroach 7.5 feet into the required side yard north setback. The sheds were built without a permit, code violation 22-171, on the adjacent property to the north owned by Seminole County. Both sheds will be relocated to the applicant's property. One letter of support was received from the neighbor at 1628 Bear Lake Road, and one letter of opposition was received from the neighbor located at 10026 Bear Lake Road that was submitted in your package. On January 23rd, 2023, a variance was approved for a side yard north setback variance from 10 feet to 1 foot for a boat dock. And on October 30th, 2006, a variance was approved for north side yard setback from 7.5 feet to 5.5 feet, and a side yard south setback from 7.5 feet to 4.5 feet for a single-family residence. This concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir?
sorry, you had your hand up.
No, go ahead,
Go
please.
ahead.
I know in your staff report, it indicated that the sheds were built, they were built onto county property,
Yes.
and they were already going to have to be moved, correct?
They do have to be
They
relocated.
have to be moved, okay.
They have to
And they're
be
still there?
moved.
On the county property?
I don't know that.
So my question is obviously this was, I'm assuming, determined by code enforcement, inspection, something?
Yes, it's a code violation, so they have to submit building permits and relocate the sheds. Obviously, they can't keep them there
Okay.
because it's not their property, and I believe it's a drainage.
I guess my question, sorry, there was a lot of words to get to this one question, but the fact that there was a encroachment has to be resolved. I'm assuming there was discussions with the applicant, I'm hoping there was at least. I'm just trying to determine, why did we come up at 0? You know, I mean, the point here is that we're trying to make the minimum
I
variance.
don't know why
And I didn't know if that was, I just
Yeah,
really was going with that, is that,
yeah,
I know
I
there was a
know I-
1 foot variance. You know, how we came to 0, I think, is if we're going to move it, there's an opportunity here not to say we're putting it right on the property line, so. And
that
I
we'll
wanted to
have
see if there was
ask.
any discussion during
Not
that process.
with me, no.
Thank you. Sorry, that was, like I said, a lot of words just to get to
That's
one answer of yes or no. Sorry.
Okay, Mr. Hadley?
Good question, though. There's a letter in opposition in our packet from a Mr. Askew, and he mentions, and I'm paraphrasing what he had said, that this is going to interfere with future county access to its land and, I guess, potential interference with drainage. Does staff at any level that y'all have heard have any concerns about if they're placed here, it'll interfere with what the county wants to do?
Just going based off his email that he sent to me and my response to him, I did speak to engineering because it sounded like his concern, the neighbor's concern, was drainage. I asked them, would it be an issue if it's at 0? And they said is it going to be on, they had tons of questions, as an engineer would. We don't know how the drainage is it going to be on skids? Is it going to be on concrete? But I don't have any plans, so I can't show them anything.
Fair enough.
I
And
did,
they couldn't answer your question.
right, and I did speak to the applicant to ask her what they were asking me, if they had pictures, and she sent me, this is what she had, that the floors were wood, but she would be willing to put them on skids if it wouldn't be a drainage issue. It doesn't have to necessarily be on a slab. But that's really the extent of the conversations.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Any
Is
other
that-
questions?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said, any other questions?
Well, I was going to ask, are these pictures representative of,
What they look like right now?
yeah,
Yes.
okay, thank you. I mean, obviously, I'll ask the applicant a question here, but it comes up. The reason goes back to that asking for a 0-foot setback puts it to the building side, not the overhang. So the overhang still encroaches over the property line.
I don't know if the back of the sheds, still doesn't matter. I'm just, the back of the sheds face the,
Whether or not there's an eave on the back,
Yeah, I
we
have
don't
no
know.
idea.
That's why I was,
Yeah,
I mean, I saw there was one on the front, and just assumed there's probably one on the back, so. Thank you.
You're
That was no further questions, sir.
All right.
I've
Yes,
got
sir.
a question. The opposition letter states that the county intends to install a fence along the property line between the county property and the property of the applicant. To your knowledge, is that going to happen?
I have no idea.
All right.
I wouldn't know
And one other question, you mentioned in your conversation with the author of the opposition letter that they were, Mr. Askew was an engineer, is that correct? I believe you mentioned it, did you?
No, I spoke to engineering.
You spoke to
our
county
engineer,
engineering?
County engineering.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Understood. That's all I had.
Okay. Okay. Is the applicant present? Oh, come on down. I know there's going to be questions. Please state your name and address.
Okay, Amy Wheeler, 10032 Bear Lake Road, Apopka. These are my two sons,
Okay.
my consultants.
Go Knights, anyway. So, my apologies.
Okay, what would you like to tell us?
So to answer some of your questions, the sheds are still there. When I purchased the home, they were there. So I did not, they were built by the two previous owners. I did not place the sheds there. One's been there for 16 years, the other one's been there for almost 10 years. They've never caused any drainage issues. I've lived there for 3 years, especially with the storms that we had last year. In terms of the 0-foot setback, I requested that because they're 7 feet onto the county property. I have a very narrow 50-foot lot by 135 foot. So that's why I requested the 0-foot setback. My house was built in 1959, and I have a carport. I don't have a garage. So I have no other storage.
Okay. We have any questions? Yes, Mr. Attaway.
I'm going to ask a very narrowly tailored question, because I don't
Okay.
want neighbors talking about neighbors beyond just the scope of what we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
But we do have a letter of opposition from Mr. Askew.
Correct.
And in his letter, he puts down his address as Winter Park, Florida, which
I believe that's where he works.
right, so does he live next to you or near you,
Yes,
do you
sir.
know?
Yes.
Okay,
He
good.
lives in the home next to
Okay,
me.
and that's just, I had a standing question, and that
Yep.
answers that, all right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
obviously, I brought up
Yes, sir.
to meet the required setback, we wouldn't be here, but
Yeah.
typically what we try to look for is a minimum request. And what you're asking for is the maximum request in this case.
I understand.
Yeah,
I
And
understand.
we've done, as staff had indicated, we have done some previous variances for the property that at least gave us a foot buffer
Right.
off of the property line. So my question is going to be is, these are having to be moved.
Yes.
Moving it to a foot off the property line, is that?
Is that out of the question? No, I would be willing to do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I have a hard time with granting the maximum variance in this case.
Yeah, understood. Yeah,
And
no, I would.
not that we've set a precedent, but,
Yeah.
there is some consistency on this lot that we've
Sure.
already, provided, so, thank you.
And furthermore, that the sheds in question have not even been moved yet, so at this time, you still have the ability, the flexibility to move the sheds at no
Yes, sir.
real, detriment to yourself.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
How far is the overhang off the back?
There is no overhang. I have a
Is-
picture that
Is flush to the back to the roof?
Yeah, I printed some pictures for you if you want
Okay.
them. The one I didn't
Sure.
print is, you wanna-
Yeah, can I show it?
it's on my son's phone, if you want to see it.
Will you just email me the picture tomorrow? That's fine. And I'll submit it to the clerk,
Okay.
so we don't
Okay,
have to
but
keep
there's
your
no
phone.
overhang on the back.
Okay. Just wanted to ask, because we told you a foot was okay, and then turned out you had a 2-foot overhang, you're still over the county's
Yeah.
property, so.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, tap the phone or it's going to shut off.
Oh.
Looks pretty flush to me.
It's not to call it.
That's the rear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a slight overhang, but we're not talking anything more than a foot anyways. so.
Right.
Looks like 3 to 6 inches.
Okay. Just enough room for the,
I don't have any further questions, sir.
okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Pardon me? I'm sorry.
Okay, no, you're fine. I was just asking if they had any other questions for you. I think we're good. All right,
Okay.
thank you very much.
All right, thank
You
you.
can have a seat. Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
motion to approve with the condition that in lieu of a 0-foot setback, it is a 1-foot setback minimum. However, that needs to be worded. I'll leave that to Angie.
Second.
We have a motion to approve it
Can you
with a
repeat that?
1-foot setback, not a
Yes.
0. And we have a second. Any discussion?
Angie, would like us to repeat the motion if that's possible?
Just what
He has a,
you,
mo-
yes, please.
he has a motion to approve the request, but modify it to a 1-foot setback, not a 0.
Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Hadaway, I believe, seconded it.
Yes, sir.
All right. We have no discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. It's approved with a 1-foot setback from the property line.
Thank you very much.
Now, it's between you and the county to prove what 1 foot is. They might require a survey. Seriously.
Yeah, they did one.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
I'm sure they did when they found out it was on their property.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, next item.
Item number 6 is a request for a front yard. I know the staff report says side street, but it is a front yard. Setback variance from 25 feet to 16 feet for an addition in the R1A Single Family Dwelling District in the Tanglewood Section 3 subdivision located at 1875 Maywood Road. The proposed garage addition will be 624 square feet and will encroach 9 feet into the required side street south setback. There have not been any prior variances for this subject property, and this concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions for staff? Is applicant present? Come on down. Please state your name and address.
William Leopard, 1875 Maywood Road in Winter Park.
Okay, is there anything you'd like to add to the county comments?
So this won't be an addition, it's just I'm extending, the house was built in 1955, I believe, 54. It's a family residence, been in the family since then, since 1956. And there's just a carport there. That is the original carport, so we're taking the existing structure and just moving it out into the driveway more to the front of the house.
Okay, I have a question.
It looks like if the house didn't sit on that funky
Change
angle,
everything.
it would be within the setback.
That is correct, yes.
Is it going to be a carport?
No, it's going to be a garage.
Is it going to be attached to the existing house?
Yes, because all we're not doing anything to the structure that's there other than replacing the beams and
I just
and
wanted to
bringing
make
it-
sure because it wouldn't be allowed for a variance if that weren't the case.
Gotcha.
So I just wanted to make sure, just
Yes.
to be clear. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
All right. Any questions for the applicant?
Yes. It's not clear to me, it's obvious that you're going to put the garage where the carport is now, but is the garage going to stick out more from the house than the carport does now? Or is it going to?
Yes, that's where the variance is asking for, because of the way you see the way the setback runs through. It's kind of hard because the way the line is drawn.
Yes, I saw, but I couldn't tell on here where the existing carport is.
It's right where the 20-foot, 8-foot is,
That's
where
what
that
that
line
is.
is. That's the existing carport right now.
Okay, I got you.
So actually, the tip of the existing carport sits right on the edge of the setback.
That right edge.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you're asking for an additional 9 feet?
Yeah, to come out into the driveway.
Understood.
More, yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'll ask the applicant that it may go back to staff, so just so this is the engineer in me that drives me crazy. So the 16-foot dimension is based on the 16-foot dimension is what we're using as what we need for the encroachment for the variance request. 16-foot dimension that's shown there, which normally be perpendicular to the building line. I just want to make sure that we're not 14 and a half because somebody measured parallel with the structure. Does that make sense?
So we measured right on the angle that it is sitting in now to the edge of the property line, if you will. So I think I understand your question, and I think it is, I think that 16-foot is correct, but I'm not...
16 foot is measured along the building line?
Along the building line to the front of the property.
Which means that the perpendicular distance to where the measurement is to the building offset may be less than 16 feet.
Yes.
And we may need to validate that to make sure that the variance that we're proposing is correct.
If they need anything less than what was advertised, they'd have to reapply for another variance.
Okay, and that's why I'm trying to avoid, so.
But we want to make sure they're not also in code enforcement, if you've already built it and...
Yes.
Nothing's built. Nothing's...
Okay. So my question is, to be clear.
I'm not trying to delay your process.
No, it's a great question.
But,
Yeah.
if you use that dimension, and that's what we're using for the variance, and then you build it like that, and they come back and inspect it, they're going to tell you that you are 2.5 feet longer than you're supposed to have been.
And that'll mean tear it down.
Yeah.
So,
Makes sense.
again, I'm asking the question, but whether we,
I got it.
Go ahead.
So to clarify this,
we're in sync.
as the county, are you going to measure the variance on the angle of the building or at the closest point?
At the closest
That variance is going to be incorrect. You're going to have to re-advertise it to build it like that and come back.
So the closest point to where, since we measured from...
The closest
tip
point
of
to the property
building
line.
Perpendicular.
You're going to have to do some trigonometry.
You take that line and just...
Never good in geometry,
Right.
so...
But you get what we're saying?
Yes, I do.
It's because he's correct. It will not be built in the correct place. The building inspector's first thing he's going to do is whip out a tape measure.
And
And it's not going to be right.
we can't fix this issue for you tonight because we can't grant you more than you asked for in your application.
Yeah, there's...
So if I'm looking at it right, it'll probably be less, which would be the same as being more,
Yeah.
correct?
Can we
Because it's going to be
continue it so he
less.
doesn't have to pay more?
Well, he has to, that's my next question.
Yeah.
He's going to have to re-advertise at a different amount. I don't know the process for that. If he had,
So not from
It would be terrible if it was built and then it was a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we approved
Good
it.
catch, by the way.
That was a great catch.
Well, that's unfortunately the engineer part of me, so
he can't shut that.
I see triangles.
So,
Next time somebody says, why do I need to learn this geometry?
so that, ask you a question while they're discussing that. So our information, so in this case, he's going to have to re-advertise it and come back. Do they have to reapply for a totally new variance, or is that a continuation of this one? Is he going to have to repay the fees?
If we continue it, can he amend it before the continuance?
That's,
I think we can work with him. It is because he's asking for something more than what the variance is. We do, it can't be just continued to the next one without having to do all of public notification, the lovely placard on the property. But we can work with him on not having to do a brand new one.
well,
I think we can modify the one that he
so
has now.
I guess here's my question for you.
Yes.
What on, so technically, what do you need us to do with it? Continue it?
He withdraws it?
He withdraws, I mean, you tell us.
Void ab initio.
I'd love to not pay $300 again and wait another 2 months.
Well, that's why I was
for it
trying to
personally.
find out for you.
This is what you can do. You can state, continue the item with the legal required notices.
So
Okay.
Because when you usually continue it, it means that they don't have to do it. But if you continue it stating that they still have to do that, it will cover
Right.
everything.
Such as when we get somebody who we don't think posted it properly, we end up continuing it. Okay. Okay. So can we get a motion to continue it with
You're
the
good with
legally
that?
required notices?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All right, it carries. So this is your chance to do your math, hire a mathematician, and find out exactly what your variance is. A suggestion is, if you're not sure, you might even ask for just a little bit extra, just to be positive.
So my question then would be, is that and I thought that you stated that if I asked for 16 and it's only 14, it's just as bad as if I asked for 14 and it's
Wait.
16?
No, no.
I always
You
tell
can
you,
always
I always
go
tell you
less.
to ask for less. I always say ask for
So
less.
if you ask for 16,
And it's
and
only
you
14?
okay.
Or more,
If
less-
you ask for
the
a
lesser
16-foot variance,
Yeah.
okay, and it ends up not needing as much, so you put it 18 feet away from the house instead of 16, or from the street or property line,
Okay,
okay, so there's no penalty to you.
okay,
But you can't move closer
gotcha.
Right.
to the property line. And that's where the issue is. I would suggest coming off the corner of that house and put a stake right where the corner of that structure is going to be, and then figure out where your property line is, you know, run some string and make it perpendicular and do your measurements off that.
The distance will be less than 16, I can guarantee that to you.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay?
all right, very good. How do I do this? Well, okay.
All right, give it to county staff and they will help you work through it.
All right.
We're just trying to save you a lot of aggravation.
I appreciate that very much. All right. Thank
Okay.
you, gentlemen.
All right,
Thank you.
next item.
Item number 7 is a request for a rear yard setback variance from 10 feet to 3 feet for a shed in the R1AA Single Family Dwelling District in the Seminole Terrace replat subdivision located at 2946 Division Street. The proposed shed will be 100 square feet and will encroach 7 feet into the required rear yard setback. On January 24th, 2022, side yard south setback variance was approved from 10 feet to 3 feet for a different shed. And that concludes my presentation.
Any questions for staff? Okay. Is the applicant present? Good evening. Please state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Susan Davis, 2946 Division Street, Novito,
Okay.
well, Seminole County.
All right.
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I was going to say, what would you like to tell us?
So we came for a shed about a year ago, and you can see it's on the side yard. I absolutely loved it. It was for gardening. And so we decided we actually would like another one. We live in a small house, less than 1,400 square feet, so we're trying to maximize our space. And so just thought the other one can, be for like a workbench in there. And then in the corner, we wanted, to put pavers and make it all pretty and put raised gardening beds in that corner. And so that's why we are back for a variance. And that 3 feet allows me to get the lawnmower, back there, so I'm still able to maintain behind the shed. And putting it out into the middle, that 10 feet, we have a well, it would put it into the middle of of the yard. And it would have to take a lot of the natural vegetation that my entire yard is. So I want to make sure that I have a corridor to be able to maintain my domestic self-supply well.
What's on that side of the yard?
On
the next property, what's on that side?
Directly behind, so the shed, that is a vacant lot. It's been vacant since I've lived there for 27 years. Yeah, so.
Okay. We can't tell from the picture always. Sometimes it shows trees and there's a house there.
Lots of air potato and just overgrown.
Lucky you. Okay, any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Motion approved, second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. It's approved.
I want a shed. That's a good shed.
All right, next item.
I need another shed. Can I get you guys just to approve it right now for me?
Yes, as long as it's inside your back porch.
Actually, I don't
Good
need you to
evening.
approve it. Come over.
Good evening.
Kathy Himmel, Principal Planner. I am going to be presenting the remainder of the variance requests for this evening. And the first one is going to be at 321 East Highland Street. This is a request for a side yard setback east variance from 10 feet to 3 feet in order to construct an 18-foot by 45-foot metal RV carport that is 7 feet into the required 10-foot east side yard setback. There has been 2 prior variances approved for this subject property in 2003. It was a rear yard setback and a side yard setback to allow a 12 by 18 shed. There is also additional information with this property because they had to, the home that was on the property, when that shed was approved, that home now has been removed. So it's a new home, but I wanted the board to know that any variances that we applied to a piece of property run with the land. So even though at one time that shed shouldn't have been the primary use, because we knew that another house was going to be constructed there, that shed and the variances then run with the land. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
just so I just want to be clear, on the survey graphic that we have, go back one, sorry. Thank you. The variance we're talking about is the 3 foot to the red square, not the one that says proposed addition on the other side of the house.
And that survey is of the older house. So that house has been removed.
Okay,
And
all
there
right,
is
makes
a-
sense. It makes sense now,
Yeah,
because you mentioned the dimensions of the shed, and that shed is not 18 by whatever 10, it says 30 by something, so.
Correct. The shed that I'm talking about is on the other side of the property. It is
Okay.
on the left side in the rear.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, I just wanted to put into the record that I had a question for staff that was answered for me earlier. The applicant states that one of the neighbors adjoining their property also has a similar carport structure. However, research was done, and there is no approved variance for that carport.
Gotcha.
And I know we have this come up a lot where we have applicants either who are coming to our counter or coming to the board saying, well, my neighbor has this, or, I see the fences, they have them in the place that I want to have them, and it puts us in kind of a unique situation because they are most likely weren't allowed to be constructed like that. And then I think what Tom is talking about then, what is our responsibility when something comes to our attention? And how it's been handled is that code enforcement is supposed to be only complaint basis. That unless it's a public safety issue, Seminole County, we do not go in. If we come up with something like this, unless somebody complains about it or it's a safety issue, then we do not address it.
And additionally, that, at least personally, I'm not handcuffed by it, but I am influenced by the precedent of surrounding properties. When a neighboring property is mentioned as having one of these carports, but it hasn't been approved by us, then for me, any obligation to adhere to precedent is out the window.
Kind of see it as a reliance thing.
Right. And so that's we can help as staff to get the confirmation, was this something that was approved by the county?
Right.
Okay.
Now, we can still approve or
Right.
deny on its own merits, but the
Right.
precedent thing is just not a part of the equation anymore. That's what I meant to say.
Okay, any other questions for staff? The applicant present.
Yes.
Good evening.
Hello.
Please state your name and address.
Tammy Thomas, 321 East Highland Street.
Okay, what would you like to tell us?
We redid our house. We had a fire couple of years ago, so it's a brand new house. The shed they're talking about actually isn't even there anymore. But the carport that we're trying to put in, we had an RV there for a while. We had lived somewhere else in the RV while we were building the house, so that's why we needed to have the RV. Right now, we have a boat that we're keeping there, not an RV, but the carport is going to be like a nice carport. It matches our black metal roof. It's literally the same roof as the house, so we're just looking for something to cover it.
Okay.
And we have a permitted driveway there, too.
Yes, there's a
Okay.
driveway that was permitted that we
Sure.
put in.
Have you talked to your neighbor next door, was that?
Yes, actually, the neighbor where it's going to be at, she just wanted to understand what we were trying to do. So she did have a concern in the beginning. She came over, I explained to her why we needed to put it there, because that's where the driveway is. Also, we have a underground gas tank to the other side of it, so that's really the only place that it could go. And once we explained to her what it was, she seemed to be fine with it. They thought maybe we were building like a complete structure there. Once I explained to her that it was just a carport, just a metal roof that was going to be a cover, then she seemed to be fine.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, motion to approve.
Motion to approve, do we have a second? Second. As they pointed at each other, Mr. Hadaway, seconds. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries, it's approved. Good luck.
The next
Happy
item-
RVing.
Thank you.
All right, next item.
The next item is at 3360 Sterling Ridge Court. It is a request for a rear yard setback variance from 25 feet to 18 and a half feet in order to construct a 325-square-foot louvered pergola, which is 6 and a half feet into the required 25-foot rear yard setback in the Alaquala Lakes subdivision. They have had approval from the Alaquala Lakes Architectural Review Committee. And also, I would like to bring to the board's attention, this is a very unusually shaped lot. It is not a typical square, so the house is also oriented on the lot in a unique fashion. So how the actual the setbacks were done is trying to accommodate both of those unique situations. Also, that the rear yard in which we're taking the variance from abuts the Alaqua Golf Course. And we have so the neighbor that is most impacted, we have their approval. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions for staff? All right, is the applicant present?
Yes.
Good evening, sir. You have a healthy collection of golf balls from the golf course?
Actually, where I'm located, I'm sort of out of the firing zone.
Not if I was playing there.
I'm right on the tee box, so I mean, unless you have a real problem.
I had an uncle.
From my swing.
No lie, I had an uncle. I was standing behind him, hit the ball, and the ball came backwards and hit me in the leg.
Well,
And I don't know how you do that.
Maybe I don't want you out there then.
That wasn't me, that was my
Stay out of my
uncle.
backyard.
All right.
I've got you a couple of things that I brought along.
Okay, first, can you state your name and
Yeah,
address
I'm
for the
sorry,
record?
Chris Dumas, and I live at 3360 Sterling Ridge Court in Longwood. And what I brought for you to review is pretty much what you're looking at right there. The pergola is going on the right-hand side of the property, on the right-hand side of the pool. And as you can see by the photograph there, and also by the photographs on the back of what I've given you, I look out on about 500 yards of fairway, so I don't have a neighbor in my backyard besides the deer. And and then off to the only neighbor I have is on the right-hand side of the property, and he is an attorney, and his letter is attached to the front, and he states that he has no issues with it. The left-hand side of the property butts into a conservation zone. I live on the end of a cul-de-sac, so I only have the one neighbor, and I barely see him anyway, except when we're out playing golf. So, and then what else? The ARC, of course, had approved this prior to, and they didn't have any idea, and I didn't either, as far as the setback and how that was going to impact us on this project. But we're just looking for approval tonight, if I can get it. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Come on down. Please state your name and address.
My address?
Yes.
Okay. Dee Dee Albertson, 119 Shady Court, Longwood.
Okay.
So I am the project manager on this, so we're currently not going to disturb any area. We're going to be on the existing deck right there. So, which is already encroaching, but they're pavers.
Okay. No problem. Is there anyone else to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? We have a motion.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve.
Second.
A motion approved. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. It's approved. Good luck. All right. Next item.
Next item is 7015 Pecan Court. It is a request for a side street east setback from 25 feet to 9 feet for a fence that is on a corner lot and is located in the Rinwood subdivision. The request is to replace an existing privacy fence that was constructed by a previous owner in the same footprint, encroaching 16 feet into the side street setback. The proposed privacy fence is 12 feet from the sidewalk and 22 feet from the edge of pavement. And this concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Good evening.
Distressed applicant.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Zach Boyer. I'm here with my wife, Anya, and we are the owners and residents of 7015 Pecan Court. I just want to add, in addition to it being a corner lot with 2 front street setbacks, with the time of the purchase of our property in 2020, there was a sprinkler system installed. That sprinkler system was clearly taken advantage of by the prior owner. It was installed inside the fence line and really just along that fence line. So by moving that fence line back to what's required under the code, we would lose half of our sprinkler system. We just want to replace the fence as is. The fence that was installed when we purchased the property, we believe it was purchased or installed back in 2005. I wish I could say a hurricane knocked it down. Unfortunately, we had a trespassing neighbor who ripped it out and threw it on our property, but that's neither here or there. We just want to replace the fence. Thank you.
Okay. All right, any questions for the applicant? Okay, just make sure. Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, motion to approve.
Second.
Motion approved, second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. It's approved. Good luck. Talk about bad neighbors, they tear your fence down. All right, next item.
Next item, 2100 Twin Flower Lane. This is a request for a side street setback variance from 15 feet to 10 feet for a privacy fence on a corner lot in the River Bend at Cameron Heights subdivision. The request is to construct a 6-foot vinyl fence that will be 5 feet into the required 15-foot side street setback. The riverbed at Cameron Heights Homeowners Association has approved the request, and they also have letters of support that have been received by 4 of the neighbors. This fence will be 10 feet from the sidewalk and 25 feet from the edge of pavement. I would also like for the board to note, in March of this year, there was a fence granted across the street from them from 10 to 15 feet.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Yes, sir.
Here's my dumb, I wouldn't say dumb question, but dumbest question of the night. As I've seen things described differently through the agenda tonight, what's the difference as far as the code defines things between a fence and a privacy fence?
It's because they can have a fence where you can see it, they'll.
Space it.
What do you call it? They staggered the boards.
Maybe an opacity issue?
Yeah, they'll
Gotcha.
stagger the boards so you can actually see through them. Like they'll put a board on the front and the back, and then you can actually see parts through the board. And so that would be
So
the
similar to
difference.
like how the rules are different for chain link fences and
Yes.
things. Gotcha. Thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Good evening. Please state your name and address.
I'm Jacqueline Duarte at 2100 Twin Flower Lane. This is my husband, Sean. We're here just pretty much requesting that extra 5 foot to be added onto our for our variance to go from 15 to 10 feet. As the project manager already let us know, the variance that was approved was literally across the street diagonally from us. And it's kind of hard to tell from the photos, but there is actually a house there. It's not like a plain land. It's not just, there's a home there. The photos that I submitted are actually other fences in the neighborhood. That one specifically are the 2 neighbors that are directly across from me, and they've gotten their variance approved. And the letters of support were from neighbors right next door to me and adjacent as well, that they have no issues with it. So we're just hoping to gain your approval today.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, motion to approve.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. It's approved. Good luck. All right, next item.
Next item, 116 Countryside Drive. This is a request for a fence height variance from 6.5 feet to 8 feet for a privacy fence at the Sweetwater Oaks subdivision. The request is to bring into compliance the construction of an 8-foot privacy fence that received a code violation from constructing without the appropriate permits. A letter of support was received from the adjacent property owner. A letter of support was also received from the prior owner of 114 Countryside Drive to the north. However, they no longer own or live on the property. I also want the board to understand that the next item is the neighbor who is asking for the same request from the 6.5 to the 8 feet. So I just wanted you to take that into consideration.
It's not a shocker. We see that all the time. All right.
And this concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Good evening. Please state your name and address.
Yes, I'm Erin McAllister. I'm at 116 Countryside Drive, Longwood, Florida.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Why the increase in height on the fence?
Yeah, great question. We actually bought this property roughly around 6 years ago. We lived in Texas and had an 8-foot fence. We moved here. Our fence was in horrible condition. We probably spent more money in deck screws to keep it together. We have been saving to put up a fence. We wanted an 8-foot fence in the front. We kept it the original 6-foot in the back because our neighbor had replaced with a white vinyl fence. We just wanted continuity. We also have very large oak trees back there that provide quite a bit of privacy. We unfortunately took some bad advice from some fence contractors, so we are just now here to make it correct.
See, it isn't so.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we hear that a lot, too.
It has been a mess, and unfortunately, you don't have to have a license to build a fence, so.
Normally, when we see a request for a height variance or something, like the house, the road's higher than the house or something, and it's causing an issue. So the fence isn't, by appearance, as high as what it was intended to be. That's why I asked.
Yeah, we also are the lowest elevation on our street. Everybody else sits higher than us. I have a 2-story house at the 114 Countryside. When we put our fence up, those neighbors we had talked to, they supported it. They sold the house last month. They now live on the other side of the neighborhood. We have spoken to the new neighbors. They are in support, but we haven't hassled
So
them for a
what
letter.
you're saying is, they told you it was okay, then they moved where they couldn't see it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
But the new neighbors are also okay with it.
Okay. Do you have any questions for the applicant? Is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
My neighbor right next door to me is going to be speaking next, and she has the same exact fence from
I
the
gotcha.
same exact company. And we
course.
are both in the same situation.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Well, I had to have you come up front and state your name and address. We're recorded for the record. That wasn't a surprise to me.
I think the term is log rolling.
My name's Jessica Elias, I lost my voice. And I am her neighbor, and I am in support of her fence.
Okay,
so.
what's your address?
118 Countryside Drive.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. I actually put mine up first, so I feel bad.
Okay.
I kind of started the mess.
All right.
So, is that all you need from me at this point, or should I just take
No,
this by?
You can just have a seat behind you.
Okay.
All right. If there's no questions, is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Is anyone to speak in opposition to the request? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve?
Motion to approve. Do we have a second? Larry? All right, any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries, it's approved. All right.
Now
Next
we're at
item.
118 Countryside Drive, request for fence height variance from 6.5 feet to 8 feet for a privacy fence in Sweetwater Oaks subdivision. This request is to bring into compliance the construction of an 8-foot privacy fence that received a code violation. There were 3 letters of support from the surrounding property owners, and, one of them signed it, moved away. But we hear that the new neighbor also is supporting it. Right. That is all I have.
Okay, any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my sheet. My thumb doesn't work as well as I thought. So, can we pull up the survey on this one? So, just I'm clear that this fence has already been constructed?
Correct.
Okay. And the reason I ask is, on the survey, we have the yellow line, which I'm indicating is the limits of where the new fence was installed, or existing fence as it is. But on the adjacent line to Lot 15, which I believe is the previous applicant, I mean, it shows the existing fence that was there on the survey about 3 feet into that property. So I was just trying to figure out if that fence was replaced. Okay.
I gained my yard back.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not trying to create friction between neighbors. I just want to be, that fence is gone and the new fence was put in on your property.
We're very, we get along great.
Perfect.
We're good, we're lucky in that respect.
We'd like to see that. Thank you. That was a question. Thank you.
Yeah, we actually,
And I'm sorry, talking to staff, and we got people in the audience talking, but, Mr. Chair, we've lost control. So-
Lost it. Lost control, that's it. Okay, any questions, other questions for staff? Okay, is there anything you'd like to add?
I mean,
I need you to state your name and address.
I'm
We start over.
Jessica Elliott, and I'm at 118 Countryside Drive. We actually are, where I'm at on our cul-de-sac, which we're both pretty far back, so you'd have to come really looking for our fence if you wanted to find an 8-foot fence. But outside of that, I butt up to another neighborhood. I'm higher, I'm lower. They're higher. And up until now, they could see right into my master bedroom. All my whole back end of my house is all windows, and so there was really no privacy. The hurricane did knock it down, and we did get bad advice as well. But we did request that a permit be pulled. I'm not sure what happened with that. I was told it was pulled, but I was also advised that you didn't have to have a permit, which I asked for one anyways. If it was a fence was being constructed over an already existing fence, and that's one of the reasons why they did correct giving her yard back, was because there was supposed to be a permit pulled. We also put a gate in front of the easement, so any utility people, for the utility easement that's there, they should have no issues coming onto the, FPL no longer needs to remove my fence to go back and get, or not do, I should say, is to remove my entire side of my fence panel to get into our, get to it. It's much easier accessible now.
Okay. Just so you know, for the future, anytime they actually pull a permit, they're required to have the permit on site when the work commences.
I've learned.
So if you can't see it, they didn't pull it.
I've learned a lot. We are very well knowledgeable now. We were giving all the advice out to our neighbors at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's to live and learn.
Yes, 100%. And that's actually where the hurricane had ripped out. We replaced when we first purchased the house, we replaced a lot of bad panels with a 6.5-foot fence, but it was pointless. It just, as you can see, that's the guy Patrick behind me, who, by the way, is in support, and his neighbor is in support. And then also everyone's, even people that aren't adjacent to our homes have come over and supported us. So I don't think as far as that goes, we have issues.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Please state your name.
At 116 Countryside Drive. I support Jess giving me my yard back, and I don't have to stare at her kids in the pool, and she doesn't have to stare at my kids in the pool anymore.
Okay.
And our dogs don't bark at each other anymore. It's really great.
Those are big dogs if they can see over a 6-foot fence.
It's a beagle that digs underneath the fence.
My daughter has a Chihuahua that barks at the dog behind us. You can't even see it, but it knows that dog is there.
It's always a Chihuahua.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak?
The bears are the biggest thing, too. I can't tell you how many times the bears just knock her fence out. They don't like her fence at all.
They will continue.
A little bit nicer to me because my dog's bigger, I think.
All right. Anyone else to speak in support of the request? Anyone to speak in opposition to the request? We have a motion.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve.
Second.
Motion approved. Second. Any discussion? All in?
No.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It carries. It's approved.
Thank you very much.
All right. Now is the time to stand up and say, I really don't like her fence.
I love her fence.
Until she thinks it hot pink room.
All right.
I've already got an ARB approval to maintain the staining, all that. So you've learned.
All right.
I've got a list of things that have been approved.
Okay. Next item.
We have our last item on the agenda, and this is for 657 Eden Park Road. It is a request for a side yard north setback variance from 10 feet to 3.5 feet. A second variance from a side yard north setback variance from 10 feet to 0.9 feet. A third variance request, a side yard north setback variance from 10 feet to 3.8 feet. A fourth variance request for a side yard north setback variance from 10 feet to 5.9 feet. and a fifth variance for a rear yard setback from 10 feet to 9.9 feet for 4 shipping container storage structures in the A1 Agricultural District, which is located at the McNeil's Orange Villa subdivision. This request is to put into compliance 4 shipping containers that are encroaching into the side and rear yard setbacks that received a code violation for placement without a building permit. And once they found that, then they realized that not just did they not get a building permit, they didn't put them into the right location, and that they need to have variances. I would like for you to note that this property is unique in the fact that it abuts the location of these 4 trailers. What do we call them now?
Containers?
Shipping
Containers. These 4 containers, they are along the Seminole Wekiva Trail, and then on the north side of the property is the Seminole County retention pond. So unfortunately, that makes them very visible from both of those sections. I would also ask the board, in your consideration for these storage containers, is for us to clarify that the use of these storage containers should only be for personal residential storage. The reason why is because we have had issues, code enforcement issues with people utilizing these structures, because they can be very, I guess, unique ways you can use them for like living.
They make luxury houses out of them in
Yes,
California.
and so I think in this case, the only way that they can be utilized, we could even consider them being on this property, is if it's being utilized as a shed and that it gets tied down with all the building permit, and that it is not used for residential use or a commercial use.
What about industrial? No, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair,
Any questions for staff?
is there a blanket language that we can, that's been codified, that we can use to eliminate the commercial, the residential, or do we need to really spell out the uses that it can't be in the motion?
I think we could spell out the use that, not it can't be, but what it is. And we could hear from the applicant what his, how he is going to utilize these structures. And then we can further clarify that these structures will be only used for personal storage or typical residential personal storage.
We've done similar things with regular sheds.
Well, I guess my question would be is, and I don't ask this question for every shed request that we get. Someone gets a hypothetical, has nothing to do with this, but somebody, we approve a shed, whether it's a variance or not. It meets the setbacks, doesn't matter. They get approved to put a shed in. If they decide to run power to it, does that put us into a new threshold? Does that change the from storage to a different classification? For instance, the gentleman earlier today, we had a workshop, they spelled it out as a workshop, so.
It gives the structure the ability to do a change of use. And that's why you can hear sometimes saying, well, no, we will not support electrical or water, because that allows it to be converted into living space.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Yes, sir.
Yes. Seeing as how the code enforcement violation was merely about the setback of the shipping containers and not the presence of the shipping containers themselves, the conclusion I draw from this is that it is permissible for these shipping containers to be used on a residential property in this way. Is that correct?
I did not read the full code enforcement inspection. I don't know if part of the code enforcement inspection was the fact that they were utilizing them for something that wasn't allowed. When it gets to us, we are the remedy in helping them legalize these structures. So
We've had one other, in the 12 years I've been on the board, we've had one other shipping container, and I think that was last year.
The ones that are all stacked up?
Yes. It's not something that's come up a lot, but evidently there's some provision to allow them because it was there. But we denied that because of the location. It was, it was like towards the front yard, about by the road, if I remember, and all that.
Yeah, right on their neighbor, and I think they
Yeah.
were using it as.
And the neighbors all objected, so.
Now, this is one that they were already converting it over to his son's apartment in the back.
Yeah.
And that was not, that was the code violation, was that they were utilizing it for a living structure. And so that was the same thing, we didn't know about that until we got more information. And so when it came to us, we told him, you cannot approve this as living quarters. We do have something that's called an ADU, but it would not qualify for the ADU. So we told him, you can't utilize that. So when they came in, he said that he wanted to have it storage, and then he was trying to go into wanting to have a home office, but a home office is supposed to be within your home as a home office. So we really had to go back and forth with him on the wordage on what he wanted to utilize, which I think is very important for us, especially in situations like this, to clarify what this variance is for. This variance is for the setbacks for these structures that are being utilized for storage.
Okay.
You're just not doing carte blanche, yes, we approve this variance, and then we don't clarify
Right, what it's for.
what it's for.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Yes, sir, come on down. Please state your name and address.
My name is Michael Hillal. I'm with MH Design Build Services. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Iton Guns. And my personal address is 1567 Travertine Terrace, Sanford, Florida. The address in question is 657 Eden Park Road. The reason I'm here today is actually to get a permit for these storage containers that he intends to use for personal storage. The original code violation was for that. Vicky Hathaway, the inspector, had come by, I guess, had noticed that they were there and there were no permits for them. And I've been working with city staff trying to get through the whole process of, showing them the engineered drawings and how we intend to tie them down. They're already sitting on railroad ties. They were that way since they were installed. We worked with them on drainage and where all the utilities are located. This is one of the last steps in the process is getting a variance, otherwise we will have to move them. The reason we're asking is, as she stated, the lot is a very unique shape, and it abuts the the retention pond to the north, and then, I guess to the southwest or east, is the Seminole County Trail, and then obviously you see Eden Park Road as the other boundary. I will say that they are not as visible as she had mentioned. Unless you go around to the side and look, you can. I did submit some photos. I don't know if they were given to you or not. I was a little bit late.
Nope.
I'm happy to email them if need be.
Can I, did you say electrical being?
No, there's no utilities, no water, no electrical, just storage.
Okay, got it.
Do you have any questions for the applicant's representative?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
You said the storage containers are on skids. They're not, you're looking at, obviously, from a permitting perspective, how to anchor them down for building permit approval. Okay. My question is, and it goes back to something I said earlier tonight, was that obviously our goal is to allow the minimum, variance. In this case, the one container, two of them are 3.8 and 3.5, but one of them's less than a foot from the property line. Can that container be moved so that we can be consistent and somewhere around 3.5 feet as the setback variance?
We can try for that, but if you look at the actual survey, if you can pull that up.
No, I'm looking at the survey that...
There's a discrepancy in how the property line actually goes versus where the surveyors placed it. The fence goes one direction, and then the property line kind of takes I'm not particularly sure which cardinal direction, but it does actually move away at an angle.
I see. They measured off the fence, not the property line.
Right.
It's consistent distance off the fence, which must belong to the county?
Yes. As far as I know, when he purchased the house, this is how his
Understood, but
fence was run.
from what I'm looking at on the survey, the 0.9 feet is to the property line, not the fence.
Correct.
So, and again, what I'm asking is, so we don't give the maximum, 10 foot, you're less than a foot, if that trailer can be moved, or container, whatever you want to call it, can be moved, so, that we're maybe in that consistent 3.5 to 3.8 range that the other two are in, so.
I don't think that's a problem. We can get that done. Sorry, I'm trying to take notes so I can convey this to the...
Understood. Like I said, we're, 0.9 is basically right on top of the property line, so. And the other two are almost 4 foot approximately, so if we could move the other one so that they're consistent, I feel like I've accomplished something, so.
Okay, so we have them numbered. On 1 and 2, both of those would be 3.5 feet.
Can you put the map up as to which ones you're talking about?
That's yes, Kathy, you're correct in what you just said.
Okay, thank you.
That container number 2, instead of being less than a foot from the property line, that it could be adjusted so that is 3.5 foot from the property
Got
line,
it.
consistent with 1,
Got it.
slightly less than 3.
3.5. And then on number,
Obviously, I got to make a motion for that. But that's...
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to-
from discussion standpoint, that's what I was saying.
cobble your motion out.
Thank you.
How long have these trailers been there?
As far as I know, he hired me,
Container.
I'll tell you the exact date. I was hired in March to handle this, and as far as I know, he says they were put in January. I don't really know if this is
So
true or
this
not.
year?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a regular rider on the trail, but I haven't gone down that particular section in a while, so I don't remember them, that's why I'm asking.
Can your big wheels see that high over the fence?
Oh, yes, it sure can. Wow.
I have photos if you...
Sorry, I was on tape too.
Big penny farthing things.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant's representative?
Let's talk about your bike.
This is the view from the trail.
Can you maybe put it under the camera?
Right, they can put it up there. And I need you to email that to them.
I did email it to Jalen.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if she's gotten it to you guys yet. That's the...
Yeah, they're tall.
Yeah, those are the high cube ones. 1 and 2 were the normal cube, and then these are the high cube, 3 and 4. This is the view from the road, from Eden Park Road.
Right, the roadside's not really, to me, the roadside's not really the issue, it's the trail side.
Right, and this is, if you go into his property, maybe 25 feet, I would say, that's the view right there of the number 1 and 2 containers. This was the regulation photo I had to take and do this for the, this is, walking down the trail, what you'd see. I actually had to stop and turn and, take the photo. This is what it looks like as you walk into his driveway. And that's it. I'm happy to move whichever one it was, 1 or 2, have him move it to the 3.5 feet.
Do you think the owner would be open to painting them some type of neutral color, maybe that blended in a little better than the rust red?
I mean, I don't see why he wouldn't be.
To soften the look of it?
Like a green, maybe?
Something, just, I don't know.
Yeah, go away green.
Yeah, just to make it
That's kinda
blend in
what
more?
That's exactly what I was thinking, actually.
Yeah.
What color?
Okay.
Go away green.
You have
It's on the Disney
a
palette.
Sherman-Williams paint code for that?
Yeah, I don't have a,
You want like a hunter green, a dark green?
yeah, some type of green
I would
or
have it,
tan.
yeah. You can't actually use go-away green because they have a
Camouflage.
patent on it. You can't use that.
I can't, I don't want to specify a specific.
Right, it'll be,
Okay.
I'll choose a
Well,
dark
you
green
just
so
don't
it
want
blends
to do
in.
neon green.
Green? Right.
I'll choose a dark
Neutral.
green.
It's tall, with 3.5 feet, it would be hard to soften it with trees or anything. There's not a lot of room.
He had intended to paint them anyway. I think they were all going to be painted green at some point in time. But when this happened, he just basically left them as is because he didn't want to get in more trouble.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
Why do you work if you have to take them out?
Well, you need to paint them anyway.
I mean,
They
the
spend their
last thing
life,
you'd want to do is fill them up and then have to,
well, they spend their life in salt air.
Yeah.
And they tend to corrode badly, especially on top, which then eventually they leak. So, that's why they're sitting empty everywhere. You can get them for nothing.
We couldn't find in your application, your client, did he tell you what he is storing in
He did not.
these containers?
He did not.
Because there can be fire codes depending on, what's being stored in there, but we can have building department, when they do the inspections,
I
they
don't have
can.
to discuss that.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
motion to approve on the condition that request number 2 for the side yard north setback variance from 10 to 0.9 be changed from 10 feet to 3.5 feet.
Okay,
Second condition would be that the storage containers are used for residential storage only.
okay,
And the third condition would be that the owner would apply a exterior paint that would match the surrounding landscape.
okay.
That be sufficient?
Yes.
Please amend it. at
That
your
work for
will.
you?
Yes, it does. I have
All right.
Second.
Yeah. Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It carries. It's unanimous. Good luck to you. So you got the 3.5 feet on number 2,
3.5 feet.
residential storage only, plus whatever the building department tells him he has to do to accommodate the size.
Yeah.
And
then we have.
finally, a neutral, some type of color that's going to make it blend
maybe a
in better.
landscape on the side.
A mural. Find an artist,
Mural.
local high school, and have them paint a mural on
You
it.
know, county staff, maybe, I don't know, maybe they have a color palette for you, I don't know.
So if
Kathy used to hide those cell phone towers.
Yes.
If the homeowner does store materials in the shipping containers that are not residential storage, say from a business or something, How would we be any of the?
Well, it becomes a code enforcement issue. It's not our issue at that point. That they have to be able
Somebody
to.
would have to notify it, report it. They're not going to do an inspection on
But
an
if you
annual
don't
basis.
create the condition, they don't have the ability at all.
And there's a
Right.
there's a liability issue out there also because the government has said, don't do it.
Exactly. Through this process, we're telling them, you can only store residential. We've had with the board in the past, ask people, what are you doing what are you storing anything with your business materials? Are these construction materials that you're storing? Russ, just to,
You don't store your neighborhood annual fireworks displays loaded in storage containers.
The issue is
All that
not
ammunition they're stocking
even
up.
necessarily this owner, but if he sells the property and the next guy comes in,
Yeah.
oh, great.
I can build ADUs, no.
yes, yes, that is what's happening.
It
You
happens.
hope someone does a title search and this pops up and
Okay. Last item we have is minutes. I know they were sent out, but I saw them.
Yes, she did.
Okay, do we have any,
We need to do them one at a time, or can you do them all together?
I'm good with all together unless y'all have an issue we need to change on one of them.
There was one typo that I did send a correction in by email.
Which one was that?
It was for last month, correct?
see if I
Thank you.
Okay.
You've already, okay, it's already fixed. All right, so as they were received by us, they're good. They're correct, the ones you sent out. Okay, so we can do them all at once. We have a motion to accept them all.
Mr. Yeah,
Okay, we have a second?
second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. It carries. They're approved. You're all caught up? All right, anything else for the good of the order?
be safe in the storm.
No, yes.
Hopefully, it just keeps drifting right by, gives us some rain, we need it, and
I
call it
have
a
enough
day.
rain.
I don't know where you get enough rain. My house is drying up. All right, we're adjourned. Don't need a motion for that.